Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To all my brothers and sisters, welcome to the Roots of Islam channel. Picture this: a man covered head to toe in anarchist tattoos. A lifelong rebel who spent decades fighting both inside the octagon and against the system itself, suddenly kneeling in a Moscow mosque, tears streaming down his weathered face, declaring his faith in Allah. This isn't fiction. This is the extraordinary true story of Jeff Monson, the 53-year-old MMA heavyweight who shocked the world in June 2024 by converting to Islam. But what could possibly drive a man who had spent his entire adult life as an anarchist activist to embrace the very structure and discipline he once opposed? The answer will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about faith, redemption, and the power of transformation. Jeffrey William Monson wasn't born into rebellion, he chose it. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, this future heavyweight contender first distinguished himself not in the fighting arena, but in academia. With a master's degree in psychology from Minnesota Duluth, earned in 1997, Monson spent over 6 years working as a mental health counselor, dedicating himself to helping society's most vulnerable members. But beneath this caring exterior, a fire was building. Monson witnessed firsthand how the system failed the people he was trying to help. Underfunded programs, bureaucratic red tape, and political indifference that left the mentally ill and disadvantaged behind. This frustration would eventually explode into the radical activism that would define his public persona for the next 2 decades. By 1997, the same year he completed his psychology degree, Monson made a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. He stepped into his first professional MMA bout. His rise through the heavyweight divisions was meteoric. Monson's grappling skills were extraordinary. He could submit men 50 pounds heavier than himself with techniques so smooth they appeared effortless. By 2006, after 14 straight victories, the Ultimate Fighting Championship came calling. At UFC 57, Monson showcased why he was considered one of the most dangerous grapplers in the sport. Though he ultimately lost his UFC 59 heavyweight championship bout, Monson had proven he belonged among the elite. Success in the octagon, however, couldn't quiet the revolutionary spirit burning within Monson's soul. As his fighting career progressed, so did his political activism. His body became a billboard of rebellion. Every tattoo told a story of resistance, every symbol a declaration of war against what he saw as systemic oppression. In 2009, this activism led to real consequences when Monson was arrested for spray painting anarchist symbols on the Washington State Capitol building. Rather than backing down, Monson wore his arrest as a badge of honor, using his 3 months of work release to spread his anarchist message even further. Fighting took Monson around the world, and with each destination, his worldview expanded. He competed in over 40 different promotions across 6 continents, but it was Russia that would ultimately capture his heart. Beginning in 2012, Monson found something in Russian culture that resonated with his rebellious spirit. By 2018, this connection had deepened into something profound. In a move that shocked the MMA world, Monson renounced his American citizenship and became a Russian citizen. The man who had once spray-painted anarchist symbols on American government buildings had found a new homeland. Success in fighting, political activism, and even changing citizenship couldn't fill the void that Monson increasingly felt in his soul. As he entered his 50s, the man who had spent decades fighting external battles began to confront the internal war raging within himself. In interviews during this period, those close to Monson noticed a change. Underneath the fiery rhetoric, there was a searching quality, as if he was looking for answers to questions he hadn't yet learned how to ask. The world events of recent years, particularly the situation in Palestine, began to affect Monson in ways his anarchist ideology couldn't address. The transformation began with relationships. In Moscow, Monson found himself increasingly drawn to Muslim friends and training partners who demonstrated something he had rarely encountered in his activist circles, a combination of strength and serenity, conviction without hatred, and a sense of purpose that transcended political ideology. These weren't the stereotypical portrayals of Muslims he had encountered in Western media. These were highly educated, successful individuals who had found in Islam not oppression but liberation. They spoke of submission to Allah not as weakness but as the ultimate strength, the courage to surrender personal ego for something greater than oneself. The events unfolding in Palestine during 2023 and 2024 became a catalyst for Monson's spiritual transformation. As he watched the suffering of Palestinian families, particularly women and children, something shifted in his understanding of global justice. His Muslim friends explained how Islamic principles demanded action in the face of such injustice. Not just political action, but spiritual action. They spoke of standing shoulder to shoulder with brothers and sisters, not as a political slogan, but as a religious obligation. This concept of universal brotherhood, transcending national boundaries and political ideologies, resonated with something deep in Monson's soul. June 18, 2024 was a night like many others in Moscow, but for Jeff Monson, it would mark the end of one life and the beginning of another. Unable to sleep, he found himself walking the streets of the Russian capital. His mind wrestling with questions that had been building for months. He found himself standing outside a mosque he had passed hundreds of times but never entered. Something about its peaceful presence in the midst of the busy city called to him. That night, he called one of his Muslim friends. The conversation lasted until dawn, and by morning, Jeff Monson had made a decision that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. He would embrace Islam. June 19, 2024, began like any other day in Moscow, but it would end with one of the most remarkable religious conversions in modern sports history. Jeff Monson, accompanied by his Muslim friends, entered the Islamic Center, where just hours later, he would emerge as a completely transformed man. The scholar who would guide Monson through his shahada was struck by the sincerity in the fighter's eyes. When the moment came to recite the shahada, something extraordinary happened. As Monson spoke the words, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasul Allah, tears began to stream down his face. These weren't tears of sadness or regret, they were tears of relief, of homecoming, of a soul finally finding its true resting place. Immediately following his conversion, something remarkable happened to Jeff Monson's understanding of community. The anarchist who had spent decades fighting against systems of authority suddenly found himself part of a global brotherhood that transcended every political, racial, and national boundary he had previously recognized. The Palestinian flag he began carrying wasn't a political statement in the traditional sense, it was an expression of Islamic brotherhood. As he explained to reporters, his conversion was motivated by a desire to stand shoulder to shoulder with my brothers and sisters during this difficult time. News of Jeff Monson's conversion spread across the globe within hours, creating shockwaves throughout both the MMA community and political circles. Former fighting colleagues expressed amazement at the transformation, admitting they had never seen him as peaceful and centered as he appeared in the videos of his conversion. Critics questioned the sincerity of the conversion, but those who witnessed the ceremony defended the authenticity of his spiritual transformation. This wasn't the calculated rebellion of his anarchist years. This was genuine spiritual seeking, finding its answer. What made Jeff Monson's conversion so compelling wasn't just the dramatic nature of the transformation, it was what it revealed about the universal human search for meaning and belonging. Here was a man who had tried everything the modern world offers for fulfillment: professional success, political activism, even changing citizenship, but found lasting peace only when he surrendered to something greater than himself. Islamic scholars noted how his conversion exemplified the Quranic principle that guidance comes to those who sincerely seek it. Today, Jeff Monson continues to train and compete, but his approach to fighting has fundamentally changed. Where once he fought with anger fueled by political frustration, he now competes with the discipline and respect that Islam teaches. His activism hasn't ended, it has evolved. Instead of spray painting government buildings, he now speaks at Islamic centers about the power of faith to transform lives. The man who once carried anarchist literature now studies the Quran with the same intensity he once devoted to political theory. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Jeff Monson's story is how it challenges our assumptions about conversion, faith, and the human capacity for change. At 53, an age when most people's worldviews are considered fixed, Monson demonstrated that genuine spiritual searching can lead to profound transformation at any stage of life. His journey from anarchist to Muslim wasn't a betrayal of his core values, it was their fulfillment. The justice he sought through political rebellion he found through spiritual submission. But Jeff Monson's story is far from over. What happens when a man who has spent his entire life fighting finally finds what he was fighting for? The answers to these questions will determine not just Jeff Monson's future, but might just inspire others who are searching for meaning in their own lives.